Hey, what's up, everybody? Gonna do a classic rock reaction, man. This is Led Zeppelin. I'm on to Led Zeppelin's ninth studio album, their final album, Coda. And this is gonna feature their drum solo called Bonzo's Montreux. I've been hearing great things about this drum solo, man. And a lot of folks have said to me that, yeah, where it comes to that thunder signature that you talk about, this definitely is a great isolated case of that. Plus a little bit more of his style and whatnot. But yeah, definitely the thunder is very, very present. Yeah, when you talk to me like that, you know that I'm hype boy. So first off, man, before I pop this off, I just want to give a shout out and a thanks very much to Sandra Dixon. Sandra, thank you very much. Sandra has sent us 3 links. So this is going to be a triple shot reaction, kind of like a back-to-back triple shot. And so actually, let me just read you Sandra's note, man, and that'll actually explain it better than I can. So Sandra says, "What's up, STB? Long-time subscriber, first time submitting a recommendation. Bonzo's Montreux is coming up. That's the drum roll. Please consider using this triple shot. First, the studio cut, then live in '77, and finally, a fusion. This fusion was released on the Led Zeppelin box set in 1990. Jimmy Page took 2 of John Bonham's drum solos that were identical, except one was played with steel drums, and overlapped them. The result, total Bonzo bliss." She's got a wink smiley face. "You'll love it. Sandra Dixon." All right, Sandra, thank you, man. Thanks for being a subscriber, and thank you for sending me this recommendation with the links. I'm definitely going to use it. And, with the mix-up of the studio versus the live, I really like that. And a fusion between this solo plus Moby Dick, definitely that'll be really something. So a triple shot of all drumming, man. That's a first here. All right, so let's oh yeah, by the way, before I get going, I'm too anxious to get going here, damn. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break up the reading in parts here. I've got Wikipedia and Songfacts open, so I'm going to break up the reading in between so it isn't just one long slab of reading, and I'll cut it down to give more room for the 3 solos, okay? So that's the method to my madness going forward. So let's kick it off, man, starting with Bonzo's Montreux, the studio. Led Zeppelin, Bonzo's Montreux. Let's get it. So it's a video. Stills. Listen to that thunder. This. It's got the steel drums in there. My pops is from Jamaica, so. feel like rewinding this shit. I love that thunder. I won't lie. Oh, wow. That was excellent, man. Sorry, that caught my attention. The last bit of that video there, showing a shot of his of his tombstone. Man, yeah. Lad was young, man. I think I should... You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn this into a Gone Too Soon series, right as I'm speaking. 32, young as hell. I'm gonna entitle this Gone Too Soon. You know, of course you understand what Gone Too Soon entails. And he was only 32, man, damn. And you know, you know what thoughts are coming to me right now? It's coming to me really fast. There's a 27 club in entertainment, and there's also a 32 club. John Bonham was 32. I believe Steve McQueen was 32. Bruce Lee was 32. What's her name? Famous Jane. She's blonde with really big boobs. It wasn't Marilyn. There was another really... I think her name was actually Jane. She was 32. It's a whole bunch of people that passed that were 32. So there's a famous 27 club, also a famous 32 club, just a little slightly lesser than the 27, but there's a 32 club. If you can brainstorm a name for me, a whole bunch of 32s that have passed, let me know about that, because I know that there's a whole whack of them. And yeah, so that caught my eye, that the last bit of this video here with his tombstone, and just kind of impressed on me, yeah, how young he was. 32, man. Yeah, this is now a Gone Too Soon, definitely. So, couple of thoughts. Let's go back from the beginning. Let's reel it back. Let's start from the top, man. If I was introducing John Bonham to someone for the very first time, well, who is John Bonham? What makes him so great? Why is he so renowned? What has he got to offer in the way of a certain signature sound? How does he contribute to Led Zeppelin? What? I would have them listen to this. It's a really good introduction to John Bonham without being so overwhelming. You know, I mean, let's face it. Well, yeah, actually, the studio version of Moby Dick from Led Zeppelin 2 is a nice intro as well. But now they're really isolating the drumming per se. So I would even put Bonzo's Montreux just slightly in front of Moby Dick just for that reason alone. So if somebody's being introduced to John Bonham for the first time, and you play this for them, they're going to get it. They're going to pick up on the thunder right away. they're going to say that his style of drumming in regards to a drum solo is really different, let's say, from that of Neil Peart, whereas Neil Peart is more a technical kind of guy. John Bonham has a lot more of a thunderous signature. And of course, it's spiced with an element of, his own finesse too. He's got the steel drums in there and all. Yo, man. So it's a really, really good intro to John Bonham. It would build a lot of intrigue. And now that person is going to say, yeah, all right. So wade me into the pool of Led Zeppelin and let's see how his drumming applies with the group. And so then from there, you got to play Kashmir, right? From there, man, you got to play them Fool in the Rain. And then when they're ready, you punch them in the face with Dazed and Confused, especially when it speeds up at that latter part and he's just pounding the shit out of those drums. Yo. And if they're still with you and they're not overwhelmed, then play them something like, the John Bonham Moby Dick solo, because by that time they're totally into it and they're totally sold. And now they're intrigued about his position in history, his legend, measuring him up against other drummers and his presence in rock and roll, his importance in Led Zeppelin, and answering the question why Led Zeppelin just could not continue without John Bonham. Because in music, in rock and roll, it's the drummer that gets switched out so much more so. And you switch out a drummer, it's like changing your socks and you just move on. Not with this guy, right? So, and it's important to know this because I'll tell you something. I'll admit something to you. When I first started my Led Zeppelin walk, and I heard that John Bonham had passed, and they didn't continue without him, I said in my mind, just a knee-jerk reaction, an ignorant knee-jerk reaction, not knowing. I said, well, what a cop-out. All you had to do was just replace the damn drummer and away you go. Drummers are probably a dime a dozen. That was just a fleeting moment, an ignorant fleeting moment in time, right? And I was a little bit, of course, judgmental before I knew the facts, knew the legend that's John Bonham. So all of those particular puzzles will really fit in nicely for somebody who is being introduced to Led Zeppelin. And when they're hearing things like Hammer of the Gods, they don't know what you're talking about. They're like, okay, let's see what this Hammer of the Gods is concerning. What is the signature sound? What does it incorporate? Of course, it incorporates all of them, but the key background of it is John Bonham. And then you watch them on stage. You watch them perform live. And I love the construct of the band on the stage. Bonham feeds everybody. If you notice how they're situated, Bonham is here in the center. Jones is always to his right. He never ever leaves the side of the drums. He is always in that vibe. I think that's the biggest reasons why the two Johns are heralded among the best rhythm section. And then you've got the two frontmen directly in front. So Jimmy Page is often right in front of the drums, just getting all of that vibe right into his back. You know what I mean? And Plant is alternating back and forth. So Bonham feeds everybody. It fans out. It starts with him. And so as a new person like I was, really going into the rabbit hole of Led Zeppelin and trying to find my way and filling in the blanks as to why this guy is so important, why they were such a force, what made them stand out from so many others, it is really, really clear and apparent after a while why John Bonham is the foundation of it all. And so this guy's importance in the lineup of Led Zeppelin can't be overstressed. I've often said that you take one of these gents out of that mix and that signature sound that we all love so much, that's Led Zeppelin, won't exist. It won't be as good. I'm convinced of that. It isn't just some fanaticism on my part. I'm not a fanatical Led Zeppelin fan, but I have followed it closely enough to have, I believe, a very informed opinion. I am no damn tadpole anymore, right? So I believe that it was absolutely necessary to have this guy in the lineup of Led Zeppelin. You couldn't have a Keith Moon. I know that there was collaborations ahead before that to include, was it Keith Moon and John Entwistle? Ahead of that, you can't have a Neil Peart. You can't have an Ian Pace. It had to be John Bonham for this lineup of guys to create this identity of Led Zeppelin. You notice how quickly Jimmy Page changed their identity from the New Yardbirds to Led Zeppelin, because he knew that they were a force unto themselves. And not only was it confusing to fans, they're like, damn man, this is not sounding like the Yardbirds at all. This is something completely different. And Page was smart enough to change that identity quickly, right? So I remember when they were recruiting for the new band, and they found Robert Plant, and they were, well, how does the story go now? It was an interview, but someone was telling me, was writing in the notes telling me about it, how Plant was, he was convicted. You know, there was nobody else in his mind. And so they were kind of throwing names around and all of these things. And Plant kind of got into a very, very quiet state. And he's like, it's got to be John Bonham, right? And that influenced Peter Grant and Jimmy Page to the point where Page was so convinced that it had to be Bonham that he sent like 20 telegrams to the jazz club that Bonham was working at the time. And then Peter Grant sent twice as many, you know, so this guy really didn't have a choice. He was even being scouted by Joe Cocker at the time, and he had options, you know, he was enjoying a nice life, a 9 to 5, he would go home, he was home and all this. So they really had to work on him to get him. And then his boss at the jazz bar was saying, if you leave, you will never amount to anything. This is the best you can do, or something like that. Anyway, that foundation is very intriguing where it comes to the legend that is Led Zeppelin and how they came to being. And these four men getting together and jamming together, it was a very important thing. And I give credit to Robert Plant for seeing the importance of John Bonham, not just because he was his childhood friend, but because he knew that the sound that Page and Peter Grant were after, trying to establish, it had to incorporate John Bonham. If they were looking to establish the thunder, the hammer of the gods, whatever it is, it had to include Bonham. And props to Plant for recognizing that very early. A young Plant, he was what, 18? 19, and he had that kind of wherewithal and wisdom already at that young age. Anyway, I can go on talking about this forever, but I won't. I'll turn this into a quad, man. But this is, I'm turning it into a Gone Too Soon, so that definitely warrants a little bit more speaking. Now, man, but I'll shut up for now. Let's get on to structure. But I like the story. I like the story behind how they came together. I like the story of how they recruited John Bonham and how they were relentless, and how at some point in time, somewhere in the back of his mind, that young guy knew that there was no way that he could exist in the world of music and not be a part of Led Zeppelin. They wouldn't allow him to be a free agent for too long. So also props towards Page and Peter Grant for just relentlessly pursuing him. Good on you. All right. So, yeah, and as promised, I'm going to break up the reading. There isn't a lot of information here, but I'll break it up all the same so we can get to our next reaction. It'll be so a back-to-back, so it'll be the live in 77 drum solo after this. But let me read a little intro to Bonzo's Montreux, man. Wikipedia says, Bonzo's Montreux is a drum solo by Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham. It was recorded in September of 76 at Mountain Studios in Montreux, Switzerland, with electronic effects later added by Jimmy Page. The track was released on the 1982 compilation album Coda. The instrumental was also included on both of the band's box sets, released in the early 90s. It was presented in a medley with Bonham's solo on Moby Dick on the first box set in 1990. Okay, that's what we're going to be listening to. And as an individual track on the second box set in 1993. Okay, let's read reception and then we'll go to the live version. Reception. In a contemporary review of Coda, Kurt Loder of Rolling Stone gave the track a positive review, praising Bonham's drum orchestra and the electronic effects added by Jimmy Page. Loder further described the track as being true to the spirit of Sandy Nelson and thus vestigially nifty at the very least. Unquote. Damn. A nice compliment from Rolling Stone. What do you know? Hey, so this is the late 70s. So by then, they've probably got over their bouts of stupid, right? You know, they took some stupid pills and now it's finally out of their system. And so they're seeing these guys for what they are, credible musicians. So good on you, Rolling Stone. Wonders do never cease. All right, man. And hey, comparing him to Sandy Nelson, that is definitely a really, really excellent compliment, man. All right, so let's check out our second track. That is live in 77. Okay, and a video. Bonzo's Montreux live in 77. Let's get it. Is that 3 minutes already? That went by so damn fast, man. That was like a time warp. Excellent. Even better, just watching him do his thing. Watching him taking his little pauses and then dropping the thunder again and just kind of relaxing a little bit. I've said before that his drumming style is different from that of, let's say, a technical drummer. Let's use Neil Peart. I like to use them as a comparison because, in my opinion, they're two sides of the same coin, but two different sides. And let's face it, John Bonham would not win a drum roll contest. He would not win a drum soloing contest. That's not his strength. You know what I mean? Neil Peart would win a drum soloing contest because of all of his technical prowess, because of all of those things. I often also metaphorically describe these two drummers as two fighters, right? Styles make fights. You've heard that saying. For example, Neil Peart would be something in the capacity of a Floyd Mayweather. Got a lot of technical skills, can bob and weave and move and all of this sort of thing. I liken John Bonham to that of a Mike Tyson. Brother can drop the thunder on that ass. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference between the two. Two great drummers, two great fighters in a sense, but both have different styles. And John Bonham's style is more appropriate and applicable to the overall signature sound of Led Zeppelin. That's why you can't put Neil Peart in that lineup of Led Zeppelin and expect the same magic. You cannot. But you can take Neil Peart and you can put him in a lineup of Rush, and there you go. You've got that great, unique magic. So each respective fighter, each respective drummer has their own style, making the signature sound of their respective band unique. You know what I'm saying? And when you're talking about the uniqueness of John Bonham, I can't remember who it was. Actually, a number of people sent me the link. Rick Beato, pardon me, sir, if I didn't get your name right. Rick Beato was showcasing what makes John Bonham so. Actually, no, that was polyphonic. But Rick Beato was breaking down. What was the song? It was "Fool in the Rain," and he was breaking down the essence of John Bonham. And when I talk about the essence of John Bonham, he was comparing John Bonham's drumming to that of a drumming machine. Even though the drumming machine got all of the points, it didn't have the essence of the man, right? So when we are talking about the greatness of John Bonham and why so many hold him so dear as the best ever, what they're talking about is the essence of the man in his drumming. Because there are drummers who are more technical, who are faster, who are more and more in every way, I'm sure. But it's the essence of the man. It's the spirit of his delivery. I use that to coin Jimmy Page, but it applies to John Bonham too. It's the essence of the man that you're tuning into. And when I talk about the essence, let's talk about Jimmy Page, for example. He is one of those guitarists that when they play their guitar, it's got a way of talking to you. David Gilmour as well. These gents have a way of playing their instruments, and it's like they're talking to you. John Bonham, it's the essence that you're feeding into. He's feeding you his essence. So even compared to that of a drum machine, when Rick Beato was finished that video, he basically, in a nutshell, said that it's the essence of the drummer himself that makes Led Zeppelin so good, that makes these tracks so magical, that what do I mean by magical? Here's a good example, a really good example. You can put on Kashmir and I can listen to that shit every single day, right? I can't listen to hip hop and R&B every single day. Even though I was raised on the genre, even though I was brought up, I can't listen to the exact same stuff every single day. But if you put on Kashmir, I can listen to that shit every single day. And there's a number of you who've been brought up listening to this since the mid 70s, and you've probably heard Kashmir every single day. If that's you, I want to hear from you. But that is what I'm talking about, where the essence of the man comes through his drumming. And some people's life force is so much more pronounced, has so much more of an effect on you, a synergetic effect on you, that you don't know what it is. You can't shake it. Now, you take John Bonham, and then you add 3 more polarizing personalities like that has their own force, and you put them all together in a group and a band, and you make them play. Damn. If you were to take any average good rock band and have them play Kashmir, you would say, yeah, that was good, that was really good. Now have Led Zeppelin play it. You see what I'm saying? So it's the essence of the man that you're tuning into. That is what makes him the best ever in your mind. Not his technical, not his style, all of these different things. His style was definitely appropriate for the signature sound, but it's the essence of the man coming through the playing. That is what you are tuning into. We're all cerebral, we're all spiritual to a certain extent, and that guy is going straight directly in here when you hear him play. Am I right? Of course I'm right. So, yeah, you know, starting Led Zeppelin, the Led Zeppelin journey, this was one of the biggest quests in starting it. I was being encouraged so much to start a Led Zeppelin journey by so many people. And without this, and I've said this already before too, I wouldn't have been at 20,000 subscribers. 10,000 of those 20,000 is due to Led Zeppelin. If I didn't have Led Zeppelin in my reaction base, I would be at 10,000 subscribers. And that was my goal. I visualized myself being eventually, over, let's say, the course of a couple of years, at 10,000 subscribers. Not too shabby. But I didn't anticipate Led Zeppelin. I didn't anticipate the speed of the rise. And it still kind of got a whiplash effect on me. After that first reaction that I did, Since I've Been Loving You, it was a hard smack upside the head. I wasn't ready, man. I was like, yo, what is this shit? And you know what made me so unaware? Is that I had this assumption going in that, I've heard Stairway to Heaven. You know, I've heard their 3 or 4 signature sounds, and that's what I thought was the best of what they had. That was just the tip of the iceberg. I didn't realize that there was an iceberg below the surface. And so when my friends ordered me to do a reaction to Since I've Been Loving You, I came into it totally unaware. So, man, go back to that reaction and you'll see me literally almost lose my shit. So, anyway, just talking about the greatness of Led Zeppelin and why it was important for me to really wade into the rabbit hole and go into this. And I never saw that coming. And I said to myself, all right, okay, I'm going to do what everyone is telling me to do and go into it with both eyes open. And I've got some questions. I'm going to challenge why they have such an effect, why so many people are fanatical about them, why, you know. And so I went into it kind of like with a critic's point of view, and held myself back. You're never going to get me to admit who's the greatest or anything like that, right? So I tempered myself going into it. And yeah, man, so here I am almost through the rabbit hole. So I'm talking way too damn much. All right, man. Let's let's go to our next track. Because I talked so damn much, I'll skip the reading and let's just go to our final track, the Fusion. So I remember Moby Dick, of course, and so with Bonzo's Montreux. So this is a Jimmy Page fusion kind of thing, so should be interesting. All right, Jimmy Page's fusion of Moby Dick and Bonzo's Montreux. Let's get it. That was excellent. We're not done. And a thunderous finish. Yo, man. What an excellent fusion. Holy cow. And this was done by Jimmy Page. Holy. That was where you took two remarkable tracks and put them together and made them masterful. That was an excellent fusion. Holy cow. Yeah, man. Introduced a new person to John Bonham using this. Wow, that was excellent. Fantastic, man. All right, well, Sandra, thank you again. I really appreciate you sending me these links, man, and recommending that I do the reaction like this. Fantastic. That was fantastic. Yeah. Again, man. Hey, you know, we're talking about the mastery of John Bonham, but it's the essence of the man that comes through his instrument. That is what we love so much. That is what makes him so damn great. You know, just the presence of the thunder alone is great. And I'll say again, where it comes to just a drum solo and a drum roll or whatever it is, and if you're being judged for your technical prowess, and he's not going to win a contest, but you know, he's got mastery in his own right where a drum solo is concerned. But John Bonham, in my opinion, is at his best when he's in the mix of Led Zeppelin. Another really good example that my head was just blown right off was when I did the reaction to Achilles' Last Stand. That was the reaction that convinced me to follow a chronology of Led Zeppelin, because the first couple of reactions of Led Zeppelin, I was just kind of bouncing around. It was Since I've Been Loving You, then I did Achilles' Last Stand, the Lemon Song, and I think those were the ones, and No Quarter. And then I had enough of an impression of their all-around that encouraged me to really take a look below the surface of this iceberg. So that is what got me to follow a chronology of Led Zeppelin, that right then and there. So I believe that it was really Achilles' Last Stand that just blew my head off and made me decide to follow a chronology of Led Zeppelin. But yeah, you know, I believe that John Bonham is at his absolute best within the mix of Led Zeppelin itself, within the mix of the music. You know, I mean, you can isolate his drum tracks, and it's masterful in its own right. And, you know, you can see and isolate the wonder of what he did and how unique he was. But in my opinion, I think he's at his best when he's within the music of Led Zeppelin. And you talk about the essence of John Bonham again. Here's another really good example. I can't remember who it was, forgive me, who said that after the O2 tribute to Ahmet Ertegun, John's son Jason was asking Robert Plant, hey, are we going to get together, or are we going to reform Led Zeppelin? And Robert said, no, man, I'm sorry. You know, as great as you are, you're just not your father. You're just not my childhood friend. And Robert can't commit to it, because what he's really missing, as great as Jason Bonham is, and of course he's a chip off of the old block and all of that, is the full essence of John. It's the full essence of the presence of his friend at the drum kit. He just can't be replaced. And Robert can't embrace a whole complete Led Zeppelin reunion without the presence of it. It's just not Led Zeppelin. So as disappointing as that is to a lot of fans, I understand it. And along the course of, let's say, a tour, I think Robert would just run out of steam. He would run out of enthusiasm. And even though that it is Jason Bonham, even though that's a piece of John Bonham right there in front of him, it's still not John. And it's the essence of the man that Robert would miss the most. And Robert knows himself well enough in the beginning of it all to say, no, listen, sorry, man, I just can't go through the whole process of having Led Zeppelin reunited without John Bonham. So even though a lot of fans are disappointed in that, I totally understand why it can never be. So let us finish my reading. Yeah, so just 2 short chapters left, or paragraphs left. Legacy and Legend. So first, let me pause and grab a drink. I'll be right back. Okay, back. The frog is dead. So, Legacy. John John Bonham still garners awards and recognition years after his death. As recently as 2011, Rolling Stone readers voted him to the top in their list of best drummers of all time. Iconic considering the band's poor reviews by critics at the time, especially Rolling Stones, was particularly galling to Bonham. Interesting. Yeah, man. Rolling Stone by the late 70s, they seem to have changed their tune. They seem to have realized it is trying to it's no use trying to pull them down because they're just too big and they're too much of a force. And so we are being forced to admit that these guys are great. They do have talent. Yes, they kind of swatted us off, and that kind of hurt our pride a little bit, and we tried to pull them down. But we got to give respect to where it's due. These guys are really that good. So I think Rolling Stone probably later on in the 70s saw the error of their ways and decided to kind of change their approach. They couldn't I guess smash the citadel known as Led Zeppelin. In the album title for the album, commonly referred to as Led Zeppelin 4, Bonham's symbol is the third one, with 3 intersecting circles, of course resembling a drum kit. Bonham's father bought him his first drum kit at age 15. But I believe that he was drumming probably well before that. Maybe had a couple of cans and stuff like that. Legend. Have you heard about the Jimmy Page is Cursed legend? Along with Bonham, 3 other people associated with Jimmy Page died in their 30s. Keith Relf, Yardbirds lead singer, Keith Moon, the Who drummer who inspired Led Zeppelin's name, and Sandy Denny, guest vocalist on The Battle of Evermore. Interesting. The Jimmy Page is Cursed legend. I've not heard of that before. Yeah, well, you know, I mentioned the 32 Club, famous people who passed at 32, John Bonham being one. I believe that Keith Moon was 32 as well, was he not? And I don't recall how old Sandy Denny was, but the 32 Club. But the Jimmy Page curse, no, I've never heard of the Jimmy Page curse. That's very, very interesting. But yeah, you know, where it comes to Gone Too Soon. Speaking of Keith Moon, I did do a Gone Too Soon Keith Moon tribute just last month. April was Who month, and so I did a Keith Moon. I don't know if it's going to actually catch on YouTube. I haven't tried to see if YouTube would take it. It's on my other platform. I can't use the V word too often because I'll actually get flagged for that. You know, this particular account, using if the host is using the V word too often, I'll actually get flagged. That's how sensitive the algorithm is. So, but you know what I'm talking about. You check out my other platforms. You'll have to scroll down a little bit, but the Keith Moon tribute was in April last month. So yeah, it's interesting, you know, the 32 Club. I want to do a little bit more research into that, and more specifically look into the 32s in music. I know that there's a lot of 27s in the 27 Club where music is concerned. Morrison, Hendrix, you know, all of those different people in the 27s. But I know there's also a 32 Club, so I'm going to look into that further. But the Jimmy Page is Cursed legend, I've never heard of that before. So, where John Bonham is concerned and Led Zeppelin, I'm going to do their last song on the Coda album next week. It's called Wearing and Tearing. And beyond that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue with Led Zeppelin in the form of the live stuff that I haven't gotten to yet. I still have a few tracks off of The Song Remains the Same. I know I haven't completed it. And I know that the Nebworth and How the West, there's a couple of others. You know what I'm trying to say. And of course, I'm going to do the O2. And I made a promise that I will do the O2 concert this year around the holiday season. So I'm saving the O2 concert for that. And after all of that, I'll continue with Led Zeppelin's solo works and collaborations. I know Robert Plant had a successful solo career and he collaborated with a few people. I recently did a reaction to Robert Plant singing some songs with Queen. One rock god singing the songs of another rock god. That was really cool. So collaborations and works like that. I know Jimmy Page was a member of The Firm with Paul Rogers, and he also collaborated with the Black Crowes, and there's other things like that. So there's a lot of Led Zeppelin stuff still to react to, because what it does is it's still going to contribute to my overall research efforts of these guys and how great they were, and those great contributing factors towards the legend that is Led Zeppelin, what's made them so great. You know, definitely not a tadpole anymore, man. So, yeah, that is my reaction to these excellent tunes, man. This great lineup, this triple shot, if you will. Sandra, thank you again. I really appreciate the recommendation. This was a great format, man. Let me know what you think about this format. As well, I'll try my best. We'll see if this goes up on YouTube. Can't hold my breath on that, no promises. What I'll try to do is I'll also try to upload the polyphonic reaction, what makes John Bonham such a great drummer, and what other reactions for John Bonham that I have. There's that Rick Beato video that I saw. I really enjoyed that, how he was isolating John Bonham's drumming. I didn't do a reaction to that. I just watched that on my own time. And perhaps I can also break out the archives and find John Bonham's live Moby Dick reaction. So I'll try and find what I can and upload all that is John Bonham and attach it to this, so that you can watch a string of reactions if you'd like that. We'll see what YouTube does with this. If not, though, check out my other platforms, especially my Patreon, because I can actually attach links to every single reaction. So just for this one reaction on my Patreon, you can scroll down and you can see the respective links that I'll actually attach. So go to one place and you'll get all of those links, and then the links will take you to whatever platform that it's featured on. So that's probably the best way to go if you want to see everything John Bonham that I have to offer. Okay? So that is it, man. That is my reaction. This is what I'm calling a Gone Too Soon. And again, thank you very much, Sandra. I appreciate it. So look for my next Led Zeppelin reaction next week, Wearing and Tearing. Until then, take care, and I'll see you in my next Zeppelin reaction. Peace.